These folks that we have this evening have very graciously agreed to share their individual stories with us. They're here tonight because they can never forget what happened and want to ensure that the rest of us also never forget. Our first speaker is going to be Mark McGinley. On September 11th, 2001, Mr. McGinley was a New Jersey resident working on the 55th floor of the South Tower for the brokerage firm ICAP. This evening, he will share his harrowing experience of evacuating the building after it was hit and his exodus to safety. In 2007, Mr. McGinley and his family settled in Chagrin Falls, Ohio.
Good evening. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you to all of your teammates and families who have been responsible for putting together this evening's incredible event. My name is Mark McGinley. I am a survivor of 9/11, and I thank God for that every day. At that time, my family and I, my wife Shelley, and my 3 kids, we lived in Short Hills, New Jersey, which is a commuting town to to downtown Manhattan. We would take the train every day to Hoboken. From Hoboken, we'd take the PATH train that led out underneath the World Trade Center. On that beautiful day, as many people mentioned in the film, it was a glorious day. We got up to our offices on the 55th floor of Tower 1, which is the South Tower. For reference, the South Tower was hit second. And we were on the 55th floor. We had somewhat of an advantage, if you will. Our trading pit was on the north side of Tower 2. So when the plane entered Tower 1, it blew out the entire back side of the building and flooded via the air conditioning ducts our trading floor with jet fuel immediately. And we saw this enormous, half the size of the building, explosion, fireball that ensued after the first plane had hit Tower 1. We knew immediately to get out. Everybody immediately stood up, went to the stairwell as quickly as we could. We had no idea what was the right stairwell or what was going to get us to safety, but we knew we had to get out of there. And we knew the elevator didn't make logical sense to get us to safety. We immediately started climbing down traditional steel girder 2x2 metal tower stairwells. We were 2x2 at the time. By the time we reached around the 25th floor, the second plane had hit our building. I'm 6'3", 235 pounds. I was tossed around like a ping pong ball, as everybody else was, and it was frightening. You thought at the time that this was the end, this was it. And you heard the loud screeching of bending metal, and obviously everybody in your presence screaming and yelling, thinking this was it. This was it. This was not going to be ending well. After a few minutes, seconds, brushed ourselves off, got up, and pretty soon after we started heading down again, we had to go to one side, because as we were heading south, down on the stairs, up coming the other direction was firefighters dressed in full regalia with tanks on their back going up, and I can't tell you how many firefighters we passed as we went down, but simply incredible that these men and women were that brave to march up into a burning building. It defies logic, but I thank the first responders every day. We got out to the ground level, and it was an insane environment. There was debris falling all over the place. We look up, and unfortunately there was people jumping from the top story of Tower 1. It was quite rattling, obviously. We turned this way to the sidewalk, and there's a jet engine embedded in the ground that's roughly the size of an automobile, smoldering. I was together with about 6 of my coworkers. We decided as a group we were going to stay together. Our first object was to try to figure out how to get out of the island. It was mayhem. People were running not only from the Trade Center, but from all the buildings around, trying to figure out where to go, how to go, what to do. So we decided that our best course of action was to try to head south to the southernmost point of Manhattan to get onto the Staten Island Ferry, which made the most sense to us. Between the World Trade Center and the Staten Island Ferry lives the New York Stock Exchange. As we were heading towards the Staten Island Ferry, we got word that there was a bomb scare in the New York Stock Exchange. So if you weren't routed enough from the Trade Center, you just got word that there's a bomb scare in the New York Stock Exchange. That turned out to be a rumor. We had made alternate routes to try to get south to the Staten Island Ferry. We came upon a dry cleaner, oddly enough, because we had no cell service. The only cell service was provided from the needle that lived on the top of Tower 1, and that was knocked out of service. So we decided to go into the dry cleaner and ask the man if he had a landline that we might be able to use. One of the gentlemen I was with was smart enough to produce a call list. So he got all of our names, our wives' names, and their phone numbers, and called his wife on Staten Island, gave him all these informations, and that lady in Staten Island called all of our wives to let our loved ones know that we were alive and we were out of the tower. We proceeded to try to go down to the Staten Island Ferry, only to get there and find that it had been closed because so many people had rushed to the Staten Island Ferry. They loaded on, I think they have 3 or 4 boats that go out of Manhattan, and it was so loaded and so taking so long to get to Staten Island, they closed it down. We decided our next course of action was to get up onto the East Side Highway, which is a major 4-lane highway that runs up and down the east side of Manhattan. If you saw it actually on the film, it looks as if the day of the New York City Marathon. It was just people, people, people. There was no vehicles anymore on the East Side Drive. It was really incredible to be there and see this visually. We got maybe a mile up the East Side Highway, and there was jet fighters buzzing all over Manhattan. You would have thought this was the end of the world coming. You didn't know. There was no information. You couldn't look on your cell phone. Every bit of information was purely hearsay that people were passing around to each other. And soon Tower 2 went down. And obviously rattled. You're thinking, oh my God, this is gonna be a world war. There's something way more to this than 2 accidental jet pipers flying into the building. Just, there's no way this is an accident. We decided to power on to get to Alphabet City, which is just north of downtown Manhattan. We got off the East Side Drive at Avenue A, and we came upon a gentleman that had a workman that had a van. The 6 of us again stayed together. We all had pocket change in our pocket, and we said, please, sir, we'll give you any money we have. Get us to Midtown Manhattan, please. The man was nice enough to agree to do this, to get us to Midtown. He got us to about 41st Street. We couldn't go any further because traffic had locked up because everybody, again, was trying to get off the island. We got to about 41st Street, got out of his vehicle, and the first building we saw where there was a man that looked like he could help us was a doorman at a brownstone building. And we asked him, please, if he could help us. We were covered in soot. We were rattled. We didn't know what was going on. And this doorman let us into his lobby. He gave us rags to wipe our face, bottles of water to drink. And it was an incredible act of kindness because he certainly didn't need to do that. After we got our sea legs about us a little bit, we decided our next target to try to get off of the island of Manhattan was to walk over to the ferry station, which is about 37th Street on the west side. So mind you, we're walking to these destinations. These are not close places. These are solid 10-plus city blocks. I mean, that's a good 5-mile walk from 41st and Madison to 37th and the west side. We finally get to the ferry depot and to learn that the line for the ferry is way more than 2 miles long. So we said, well, just no way we can stand here and wait for these ferry boats that run to New Jersey are not big. If they have 50 people on them max, that's the max. There's just no way they're that big. And to get through 2 miles of people trying to get back to New Jersey. Rumors again were flying about what was working, what was good, what was happening. Is Penn Station, the train station in Midtown on 34th Street, is that open? Is it closed? Is it working? Are they taking trains? So we said, okay, we're not going to deal with the ferry. So we walked down to 34th Street to Penn Station, and we got onto a train. These trains were packed. People were covered in debris. People were not in a good place. Very crowded. People were very angry and anxious as to what was going on. I finally got back to my home in Short Hills, New Jersey around 6 o'clock in the evening. And my wife and kids were at the train station. And that was the greatest embrace of my family I've ever had. I lost some very good friends that day. In particular, 3 very close friends, Kevin Cleary, Tom Clark, and Richard Madden. They didn't make it out, and these guys I grew up with, we played Little League together. They didn't get out. Why? Why did, there's always been lots of questions, why me, why not me? I'm lucky. Others were not lucky. It was 100% luck of the draw, where you were in the building and how and when you could get out. I love to try to pass on the message when I speak of my day on 9/11, that why not try to make the world a better place for having been there, instead of being in a state of sorrow for having been there. So I try to wake up every day and try to be the best person I can for my family, for my friends, and for strangers. I try to put a smile on my face. I hold the door. You say yes, please, and thank you. I consider myself a very, very lucky person to be here today. I appreciate you all listening to my story, and I look forward to hearing the stories from other folks. Andrew, thanks so much for having me. God bless America, and thank you for having me.